Hello and welcome to the Shetland Times podcast. I'm your host, Thor Holt, and before we meet today's guest, I suspect you've already heard, and I'm delighted to say that the highly engaging Marie-Elaine Robertson is taking over the Shetland Times podcast hosting role very soon. She's actually a previous guest on the show. We spoke while she was on tour in New Zealand, and delighted to announce that Marie-Elaine is taking over from me in the next few episodes. Today's guest, he's got over 30 years of experience of working in the sports and leisure field. He's a fully qualified artistic gymnastics, preschool gymnastics, football and trampoline coach. He's coached a national champion, and in 2011 he was awarded the Scottish Gymnastics Services 2 Gymnastics Award. He was the founder of Shetland Gymnastics and the Inferno dance group. There's all kinds of other stuff, but I hope you enjoy my conversation with Mark Wylie.
Hi.
Thor here from the Shetland Times podcast.
Yes.
How are you getting on?
Yeah, no, good, thanks. Yeah, good. Yourself?
Great, yeah. I'm just checking the levels on this recording software as we go through a couple of preliminaries. What do you have for breakfast, Mark?
Just had some special cane toast.
What was on your toast?
What was on my toast? Just butter and marmalade, the old-fashioned way.
Do you like marmalade with big, thick bits of orange in it, or do you just like the thin stuff?
I must admit, I do like it with the big, thick bits of orange in it.
Me too. I always used to think you couldn't trust somebody that didn't like the thick bits in the marmalade. But then I married one. I married one that didn't like the thick bits.
Excellent. There's no accounting for taste there.
Indeed. Well, she married me, so obviously her taste is a little off.
Brilliant. I love it.
So, are you just in Inverurie?
I am, yeah. Well, actually working in Inverurie, but actually living in Old Meldrum.
Got you.
So just sort of 10 minutes away. I kind of miss Shetland, and I would love to go back at some point. But I think Jenny, my wife, is like, I don't know. I think we find there's too much sort of choice here and things to do as well. It's difficult, yeah.
Why did you move down then? Give me the story of that.
Yeah, I'd worked 29 years in the Twickenham Leisure Complex, and right from when it opened in 1985, which was a bit of an adventure in itself, just beginning and opening a sort of a major new facility as it was, and still is in Shetland then, and absolutely loved my sort of time working there. Got involved in so many new ideas and creating so many new activities there as well. When my wife Jenny came along in sort of 2000, and we got married in 2002, she moved up to Shetland and said, I'll maybe stay here 5 or 6 years, and we were kind of thinking that was kind of an informal agreement sort of thing. And what happened was, I think, 14 years later, she was still there, loving it as well, and getting into various things like netball and diving and things. And this really good job, this really good promotion in the council came up for her in Aberdeenshire. She thought she'd try it, not really thinking she'd get it. And of course she did get it. And then we thought, oh no, what are we going to do now? And so we thought we'd just try it and move down. And so we moved down in 2014, so 3 years now exactly. And yeah, we're absolutely both loving it in Aberdeenshire. Yeah, much to my surprise actually, but loving the quality of life and loving the sort of choice and different things available to do.
You say much to your surprise. That's interesting. Did you not think? I mean, you're from Shetland, are you originally? Were you born?
Yes, I've always sort of lived in. Apart from living when I was preschool, lived a couple of years in Fair Isle, and sort of one of my first houses was in Hoswick and Sandwick for a few years. But apart from that, I've always sort of lived in Lerwick, where I was born, and never thought I'd leave. And it is much to my surprise that I'm enjoying it so far, very much so. Yeah.
That's funny. It's funny to me because I don't know. It's that quality of life thing. I think actually Aberdeenshire is one of the rare places where you get something approaching the Shetland quality of life. Possibly better weather, which makes up for some of the other things which you get in Shetland. I mean, the freedom factor in Shetland is just massive for me, and that's hard to replicate even here in northeast Scotland.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I think the freedom factor and I think the safety factor, a lot of aspects in Shetland is kind of unbeatable, really. But yeah, the weather, we're certainly enjoying it's not that far away, but we're certainly enjoying the difference in the weather, and something I've been able to take up in my spare time is a big, small version in the garden is growing fruit trees, so apples and plums, and in Shetland we sort of struggle to grow flowers, to be honest. So it's even grass at times, I think, but it's certainly enjoying the weather, and as you say, the quality of life in Aberdeenshire is, I think it is rated one of the highest in the UK, actually, and certainly in Scotland. And it does replicate Shetland in a way, especially where we are, out in the countryside and surrounded by sort of agricultural farmlands and things. It's not as if you're sort of stuck in a big city and having the sort of noise and pollution and the crazy busyness. It's very much, I feel like it could be in Shetland, just sort of in the mid-20s some days. It's really good, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Like today, beautiful day. But I'm gonna switch gears a bit, because I have to admit I don't know much about gymnastics. For example, my daughter will occasionally flick a cartwheel or some kind of cartwheel with a round off and tell me what it is, but I don't really understand it. So when I googled you and found out a couple of names of people you had coached, one of them turns out to be Britain's greatest ever female gymnast. How did that come about? Do you know who I'm speaking about?
Yeah, I think I didn't actually coach Beth Tweddle. Unfortunately, I'm certainly not that good a coach. I'm just happened to be very good friends with her, and she actually came up and stayed with us a couple of times up in Lerwick, and helped the sort of local gymnastics club, Shetland Gymnastics, which Julie Grant and I set up following the Island Games in Shetland in, I think it was 2005. So, it's as much as it sounds good, I certainly didn't coach Beth Tweddle. Just happened to be good friends, and we've been down to stay with her in Liverpool a couple of occasions. And as I say, she came up, and it was two great occasions to have Beth up, a name like that, up in the Shetland Isles, where I think we got as far as the Owl Leisure Centre, and had a good look around Shetland, and I think she was able to help several hundred gymnasts at the time, and really just inspiring, really, more than anything else. Mm-hmm.
So it's a good job we clarified that, because this is some hashtag fake news that I got from whoever had
fake news, as Donald Trump says.
Yeah. So how did you end up being friends with her then? That's still an unusual set of events, isn't it? How did that happen?
Yeah, it's where my wife's from is near Lilleshall in Shropshire, and that's where the British Gymnastics headquarters is. In fact, it was 10-15 minutes walk away, actually, and that's where Beth did a lot of her training at Lilleshall National Indoor Sports Centre, and I just popped along someday to see what was going on and met her, and really got to know her from then. I mean, she's been a huge help with advice and things. One of my sports before that, it is included in gymnastics, but was trampolining, and I coached trampolining right from 1986 in Clickman, and we did manage to have a few successes, especially one name in the early 90s, and that was Josie McCready. We travelled away every few weeks for a number of years, actually, doing squad training and competitions, and finally she won the sort of elite section in the national championships to become national champion, and we went on to sort of European and world games in various countries, and that was quite an adventure, actually. That was not quite Beth Tweddle, but it was a lot of good fun at the time.
So, but she became a national champion, and were you were her main coach? Were you her trampoline coach?
Yes. Nancy Hunter as well from Skyline was valuable assistant, and together we coached Josie for a number of years, and she was sort of the first big name in Shetland to travel away and compete in a lot of sporting events, and possibly the first Shetlander to become national champion at any sport, I think. I may be wrong in that, but at the time, that's what we were kind of thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember her name from the Shetland Times back then, back in the 90s. So what would you put that down to? Like we could say it's all down to the coaching, but what is the what is the secret, do you think, with something like that?
Yeah, no, it's certainly not all down to the coaching. Although she was very keen on coaching. I think you've got to have that. I think that the athlete has got to have that inner drive to be able to go and do it themselves, and not be pushed by a coach or not be pushed by parents. Actually want to be there and work hard and do it themselves. And I think that's more important than the actual coaching itself.
And what's your kind of philosophy as a coach? It's something that fascinates me, just the idea of bringing out the best, encouraging other people. But what would you say your kind of strengths are as a coach, Mark?
Well, I'd like to think it's identifying sort of talent at a really young age and trying to keep them keen and trying to take them on and develop them and keep their interests. And we've seen that a lot in Shetland, and we've seen that a lot now. So we've kind of progressed here in Aberdeenshire as well with sort of runners and athletes, which I'm kind of working a bit more with at the moment. And it's just kind of keeping that interest and almost feeding off of their drive to succeed. And if they do succeed, it's just the most amazing feeling to be just even play a little part in seeing somebody grow up and succeed and be successful at what they're trying to do.
So if we drill into it a bit, though, what is it a coach actually does? Because if someone hasn't been coached as an athlete, they might have a slightly skewed vision of it. They might remember a coach off of a movie or something, but what does it actually involve day to day?
Well, obviously in gymnastics and trampoline and more technical sports, it involves a lot of sort of passing on knowledge and obviously keeping the safety aspect as it was as well. Things like athletics, a lot of technical things in it as well that people don't realise. Obviously technique and things, but it's a lot of encouragement. It's just a lot of being there for the athlete and keeping them enthusiastic, really.
Sounds like what you're telling me is, and I might be wrong, I'm just going to try and recap. It sounds like what you're saying is one of the keys to a good coach is actually to identify the right people, the talent in the first place. Because if you get someone who isn't that right person, you could pour all the resources and all the technical details and all the safety, and it's still a waste of time because the kid isn't really into it. Never mind whether they're going to win things.
That's right. I mean, working in a leisure centre or sports centre, for example, you're not just trying to identify the best. You're just trying to provide a service, and even if a child or whoever is not fantastic at that sport, as long as they're still enjoying it, it's fine. They're still getting a lot out of it, whether it be physical, mental, enjoyment, meeting friends, the social side of things. They're still getting a lot out of it, which is fine. But looking at sort of the higher up standards, going into more elite type sports, ideally you're really wanting to identify the youngsters at the earliest possible age, and just bring them on in that stages as they develop. Yeah.
Super. And so, speaking of identifying, somebody identified you, and you got awarded something. Now, I haven't looked this up, so I'm not sure what it is. You were awarded the BEM, is that right, in the Queen's New Year's Honours in 2015?
It is the BEM, yes, and a lot of people have asked me, what is the BEM? It's obviously not it's famous, and you see some of these sort of celebrities getting the MBE and the OB and things, and so they're like, Mark, what's the BEM? So I think a British Empire Medal, it's just slightly below the MBE awarded. Yeah, I was quite shocked actually, and quite obviously honoured to be in the Queen's New Year's Honours list a couple of New Years ago. Basically for services to sport in the Shetland Isles and for charity work abroad, which, as I say, I'm still a bit shocked, to be honest.
So did somebody nominate you, or how does that work? You obviously didn't nominate yourself if you were shocked that it happened.
Yes, I really don't know much about the process, but I've looked into it a little bit, and one or two more people in the know have been able to give me little bits of information. Apparently, it's almost a group of people that have to get together, and it's a number of letters, supporting letters, along with a nomination that goes in, and it has to pass several different It's something I really don't know a lot about, and I've certainly not worked out who or which sort of people nominated me. But all I can say really is wow, and thank you very much.
Well done.
To be thanked for thanks. It was. I believe after someone's nominated, it's perhaps up to a couple of years before they ever hear anything, if they're successful, is what I've been told. But yeah, I was absolutely delighted to get it, and it was actually just a few months after I'd moved away as well, which was even more special, I think.
Yeah. So what was the charity work that was part of that award then, the charity work abroad? Can you tell me about that?
Yeah. So myself, and what I did was, on 3 different occasions, get a group of friends together, and 6 or 7 of us each time, and 3 years apart, we did 3 different volunteer projects. So in 2008, we did what was called the Shetland to Zambia Gym Project, where we fundraised for a year and raised, I think it was £14,000 in Lerwick and various places, doing raffles and backpacking and in different sort of charity events. I think there was even a pub crawl and fancy dress and things, and which was good fun. We went to Zambia. We helped to introduce gymnastics to lots of the local schools there, which was obviously outside in sort of the dirt and the sand. In 2011, 3 years later, we had the Shetland to Romania Orphanage Project, which we did the same again, and we took a couple more friends on board, and we went over to Brasov in Romania and worked for a few weeks in orphanages there, which was a completely different experience from Africa, but we got a lot out of that as well. And then 3 years later again, in 2014, just before we left Shetland to come to Aberdeenshire, we went back to Africa, and this time we went to Malawi, and it was Team Malawi, and again we were working in local schools and orphanages, and we had 1 or 2 volunteers who worked in hospitals as well.
So what's the project this year? Because it strikes me it's 3 years between each project, and this is 2017, so you're due another one.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, I kind of wish I had time to go and do something else at the moment. I think my 2 passions is sport and travel, and I was able to sort of mix up that a bit with those projects and get the best of both worlds. I think at the moment we're just far too busy with work, really. Still keeping touch with all my friends in Shetland, of course, but this summer I'm going to focus on opening we've just recently opened last week our Skyline Trampoline Park here in Inverurie, and that's really taken up all my time at the moment. Since I moved down, I've been working 3 years in the Geary Sports Centre in Inverurie, developing various children's classes and helping to manage the centre. But just recently moved on to one of these trampoline parks, which seem to be opening all over the place. And it's been a busy few weeks getting things open and ready to go. And we've just done it, and it's been just in time for the school holidays here. And it's been extremely busy. So all my time has been taken up this summer with that.
So are you the manager, the owner? How does that work?
Yeah, I'm. So there's a couple of owners, and I'm the park manager. And we've got so far we've got 48 staff on board, some full-time and some part-time.
What size of a place is it? 48 staff?
Yeah, well, it sounds a lot bigger than it is, actually. It's a big converted warehouse, so it is quite large, almost 100 trampolines and various other pieces as well, foam pits and things to jump into, and airbags and things. But it's a fantastic place, it really is. When I say 48 staff, a lot is part-time, a lot is kind of weekends and school time. Got a cafe staff, reception staff, jump crew. So yeah, it's certainly a busy and interesting place at the moment.
You sound like a extremely driven individual. I wonder if you could tell me why or where you think that comes from. Like the charity work, the coaching. You sound like a bundle of energy, to be honest. Where do you think that comes from, Mark?
That's a good question. I honestly don't know. I've always wanted to do something and get my sort of teeth into doing various different projects, and it just makes life more interesting, to be honest. You can come home and you can read newspapers, you can watch TV, or you can just get stuck into all these different projects and have a far more interesting so life. I think a lot of it, to be fair, probably comes from not having children. So we've not got that to focus on, which I think gives anyone without children, gives them a lot more spare time, I think, to think about things. So probably a lot more energy as well, I guess.
So what did your folks do when you were growing up? What were your mum and dad?
So my mum worked in the Shetland Times bookshop for many years.
Nice link. The guys at the Shetland Times will appreciate you getting the product mentioned in there.
Absolutely, and she just retired a few years ago, actually. So she had a long time in the Shetland Times bookshop, and my father was a manager in various fish factories. And when I was growing up, he was a fisherman.
What boat was he on?
For many years as well. So. So I think we've always been like a hard-working family, and I guess that's kind of passed down to the children as well.
What? Sorry, I think I interrupted you, but you maybe didn't hear me anyway. What boats was your father on? Can you remember any names of the boats?
Oh my goodness! So the fishing boat thing was way back in the 1970s when we were really young, and I think he was on the. No, sorry, I can't remember that actually. Don't
worry. I was there'll be somebody listening that would remember the name of the boat. What did your folks do when you were on Fair Isle? I picked that up. You said you were in Fair Isle for a couple of years.
Yes, we were in Fair Isle for a couple of years before I started school, actually, and I think the main reason for moving off Fair Isle was sort of ready to go to primary school and parents changing jobs and things. So we were on Fair Isle because my father was lighthouse keeper at the North Lighthouse. Obviously, before it went automated, and we lived there, of course, and that was obviously before the North Lighthouse buildings were demolished.
Brilliant! I can't believe you weren't going to mention that your dad was a lighthouse keeper for a while. That's like must be one of the rarest jobs in the world. How many lighthouse keepers are there?
Yeah, I guess that's a far more interesting job. I don't think there's many lighthouse keepers in the world anymore, but it's. I don't remember a lot about it when I was 3, 4, and 5 years, but I can imagine it would be a very, very interesting job, especially some evenings, some days in Fair Isle, where I can imagine the wind gets pretty crazy wild.
Too right. Well, I'm from Papastura myself, so island winds can get pretty extreme. So how can or maybe they can't, but how can listeners connect with you, Mark? Well, they could come along to the new trampoline park in Inverurie when they're down in Aberdeen on their holidays. That's one way. But do you use any social media accounts, or is there a main website for the trampoline park you'd like to promote or anything?
Yes, I'd certainly love to see some Shetlanders down if they're ever down. Shetlanders seem to get everywhere, and I've already met Shetlanders in the supermarkets in Inverurie, which is unbelievable actually, but believable at the same time because we do tend to get everywhere. And certainly when I go into Aberdeen, there's very rarely a time that I don't sort of stop and speak to a Shetlander, which is really nice actually. Yeah. I'd love to see some Shetlanders over at the trampoline park here in Inverurie for a go. I'm also on social media as well. I'm big into Facebook. Mm-hmm. And coming back to our trampoline park, you can contact me through Facebook. You can. We have a website as well, which is simply skylinetrampoline.co.uk.
Nice one. And one more question that I ask everyone, or I should ask everyone who comes on this podcast, and that is, what advice would you give to anyone considering visiting or even living in Shetland?
Oh, that's great question again. I would say it's definitely worth trying. I know a lot of people that have come up to stay in Shetland and think they were only going to be there for a small period and stayed for a long time, and some people are still there and living the way of life. I would say come up in the winter time as well and try that too. just so you know, they're two different. It's a completely different place in the winter time, as we know. It can still be a nice place, of course. It's just check out both winter and summer first. And the other advice I would give somebody is or what I always tell people is, you'll always fit in with the community, really. You'll always meet friends. Shetland is the most friendliest place to be, really. And for the people that say there's nothing happening in Shetland, there's hundreds of activities happening in Shetland, indoor and outdoor. So summer and winter, it's you can fill your social time, no problem at all.
Nice one. Thanks, Mark, and thanks for coming on the Shetland Times podcast.
No problem. It's a pleasure.
Hope you enjoyed that conversation with Mark Wylie, and please do go to the shetlandtimes.co.uk or to the Facebook page. Suggest people you'd like to hear interviewed on the podcast and give us feedback on the interviews. We'd really love it if you'd give us an iTunes review as well. All the best. See you next time.